Getting a job in cybersecurity in today's job market seems impossible, and you're feeling like employer requirements are completely out of touch. You're actually not alone. Here's the thing, there's something called hidden job requirements, and in this video, I want to break them down for you. Hi, my name is Ryan from Elevate Cyber, and I have over a decade of experience working in cybersecurity at between multiple Fortune 500 companies and the US government. And I've also played a pretty active role in the interviewing of candidates for the job, as I've conducted over 100 interviews in my career, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so for any job application, there's essentially two parties involved. There is the hiring manager, and then there is the recruiter. They come together on something called an intake meeting. And in this intake meeting, it's essentially an internal meeting within the company where the hiring manager is really the main responsible party here to come up with a list of requirements. So anytime they are about to post a job posting, the first thing they do is they sit on this meeting and they discuss back and forth and see what type of candidate they want. They list out all the criteria, and these criteria are separated in a number of sections. So they'll say like the must-haves, like the non-negotiable things that they're looking for in the candidate. And then there's the nice-to-haves, which are like some nice bonuses. And then they also have the disqualifiers, let's say, like if they see, whatever qualities, whatever background, then that would disqualify the candidate. They come up with a list of all of these things and they draft it into a document, right? Now this document is then sent to the recruiter, and the recruiter will review it and determine, if it looks okay or not. They're going to have like a bit of a back and forth conversation between the recruiter and the hiring manager to see like, does this make sense? And the recruiter can, and sometimes does, especially good recruiters, they will push back on some bad requirements out there. And so this is what the main process looks like here, but it all stems from these intake meetings. So next time you get mad about some of these job descriptions and stuff, understand that it's mainly the hiring manager to blame, not necessarily the recruiter so much. And here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that when you go to a website and you see a job posting and you see all the requirements listed out, this is not the same as that internal document that we looked at before. And this is where things get interesting, right? You might look at this and you might actually meet these requirements. You might actually meet, probably not, right? Like I said, I've never applied to a job that I've been qualified for on all the metrics. Let's say you might meet enough of these criteria, but you still might not pass the secret internal requirements that they're looking for. And that is where the confusion lies. And this stuff that they discuss internally in these intake meetings, that's never revealed to the public. We don't actually have any way of knowing what these are. Now, there have been leaks and things like that between various companies and stuff like that, where occasionally these things are leaked, and you can kind of glean a little bit off of that. The main thing is that there's a lot of requirements that you're not going to see and you're not going to know about. So now that we understand this overall process a little bit better, what are some of these criteria to avoid? Because here's where things can get a little bit crazy from what I've seen out there. There's a reason why you often don't have access to see this stuff, because, it might not be stuff that they want you to know about, right? And so a lot of times on the, let's say the disqualifiers, or, the things for them to avoid, it can get a little bit crazy. It can get a little bit dicey. So some of the things, it might be like visa candidates. If someone is not from, the US, they have their visa, like their work visa to be here, that might be a straight up disqualifier. So that won't be something that's in their job description, but if you hold a visa, it could be that you're automatically disqualified straight up off that, even if you match perfectly all the other criteria. Another thing that people find really interesting, and when I first heard this, I thought this was pretty crazy, but it could be the types of companies you've worked at. So what I mean by this is, if you have worked at startups, that might qualify or disqualify you. If you've worked for Fortune 500 companies, that might qualify you or disqualify you. But the rabbit hole does go a little bit deeper than this. It goes a step further even, because it could be the specific companies you've worked for. They may even straight up say, hey, if you work for Dell, then you're not going to be a good fit for us. If you work for XYZ company, you're not a good fit. And that might actually outright disqualify you right there, even if you are a super elite candidate. That is one of the aspects of this processes. And this is, I think, part of the reason why you see all these job openings that stay open for so long. And they're like, we can't find anyone qualified, because the qualifications that they're looking for is, can be sometimes pretty ridiculous. And there's a reason why they can't fill it. And this is part of the reason in many cases. Now, another thing that they might look at is time in the role. Now, this is the part that is probably going to offend some people here, but a lot of companies will look at time spent in role, let's say. This is mainly aimed at screening out job hoppers. So what they might look at is to see how long do you spend at the companies. If I've seen in some cases where it's like, if you even had one job where you were there less than 2 years, even one time, that would automatically disqualify you. So this is something that you sometimes see as well. That's something that we don't, people don't want to hear, right? That's something that is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it's their company and they don't really owe you anything. They can decide to hire you or not hire you. But of course, if they're being too unreasonable, if enough people don't pursue these jobs, then, they would have to, by the laws of the market, they would have to change their policy. But the thing is, we have no idea of knowing which companies are actually kind of discriminating in this way because we don't have access to this information. It's internal. So that is one of the gotchas with it. And obviously, these are just some of the things that these companies will commonly use as disqualifiers. It's really up to them. There's an endless potential list of disqualifiers, but the point being is these things could be in place, but you would never know just by looking at the actual job description itself. So I would say the main takeaway from this video is I wouldn't be too overly concerned with this. At the end of the day, if you keep leveling up, if you keep elevating yourself in cybersecurity, as my channel implies, then you will be putting yourself in the best position. But I think it is still very valuable to know that this is out there, to know that this exists, especially when it comes to things like how often you job hop, having gap years on your resume as well, and things like that. I know this can be kind of disheartening to hear, but if you'd like my help to overcome these challenges and land a job in cybersecurity within 6 to 12 months, in spite of this current job market and the unfortunate things that are happening, then go down below and book a call. Or if you just like more guidance around optimizing your resume so you can actually start landing more of these job interviews, go and watch the video on screen right now where I will share with you my ultimate cybersecurity resume.